You're listening to Dare to Transform, where we find the vision, dedication, and motivation behind inspiring stories of transformation. This is episode number 1, the yin and yang of entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Angela Harris, founder of Work of Heart, bringing you a Missing Link Technologies production. My guest today is Chantal Gaudet. She is a community builder, a longtime entrepreneur, and the co-founder of both Pura Vida Yoga and LC Builders. As a dedicated yoga instructor, her goal is to inspire people to reconnect with themselves and to help her students to put themselves at the top of their priority list. Welcome, Chantal, to Dare to Transform.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you here today for this very first episode of Dare to Transform, and I wanted to share a bit about why I'm here before we get into your story. So flashing back to 2015, I found myself in the midst of a cancer scare and a burnout. I had 2 small children, and I was traveling around North America, flying almost weekly. And one day, as I was getting out of the shower, I remember thinking, okay, so if I have cancer, I will quit my job. And wow, that was, I would say, a pivotal moment for me and really what got me started on this journey the last almost 4 years, and has led to me leaving my corporate position, starting this movement known as Work of Heart, going out on my own as a business coach, among other things. So so getting right into it, Chantal, I wanted to invite you to be my first guest for a few reasons. First and foremost, you are my very good friend, who I refer to as my spicy Zen yogi friend. Second, you have been such an inspiration and support to me as I started my own entrepreneurship journey. And last, but certainly not least, I wanted to have you on today on this first episode because I love your story of transformation as you have become an entrepreneur. So Chantal, welcome to Dare to Transform.
Thanks again. So happy to be here again.
Yes, we're so excited. We're so excited. So as we get started, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and maybe how you got started so that the audience has a better idea about you?
Perfect. So I'll try to get this a little bit short, but I started with a university degree in elementary education, so I knew I wanted to teach. Did that for a couple of years while my husband and I co-founded this construction business where we found quite a bit of success, enough that we could actually leave both of our full-time jobs to dedicate our time and energy into this booming business. And in the midst of this crazy, busy lifestyle, I just realized I needed to do a little bit more work on my own. So more balance, work-life balance is really hard to find. I noticed my neighbor that's got 5 kids that is sitting on her porch drinking tea, and I'm like, what is she doing that I am not doing? So she told me she did yoga. And that's where I just became a student, and I really hated my first class. I really was wanting to leave it quickly and rush out of there, but I couldn't because she had driven me to my first yoga class. So I was stuck in the studio. So while we're leaving, I kind of get this runner's high, which I had heard about, and just fell in love with the energy after the yoga. During the yoga, not so much, because it was very much the stillness part that I had a hard time with, the moving with breath and just being told what to do. I guess that might have been a little bit of a challenge for me. And then became interested in teacher training, which then led to a discussion with one of my co-owners to possibly open a studio in Dieppe. And fast forward, I am in my training in Thailand, and we opened 4 months after, and it's just been a roller coaster ride for the last 5 years.
Crazy.
Yes.
Yeah. So you are just about to celebrate your 5-year anniversary at Pura Vida.
We just did. December 19th was our 5-year anniversary, so it's been, quite the roller coaster ride. And we're really happy to have celebrated the 5 years.
And what would you say, what are the biggest lessons that you've taken away?
God.
You're like, how much time do you have?
Yes, it's a daily challenge. As soon as you think you have everything figured out, something happens. For example, last summer, there was 3 months of plus 40 degrees, was not on the radar. So we should have shifted our business strategy, and we didn't. So it was just like a learning lesson. So a lot of lessons as we go.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Chantal, did you always know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Do you feel like looking back that you knew it, or?
I think so. I think having a teaching position where everything was dictated as far as the bells and when you had your break and when you're able to have a little bit of time for yourself, I just really cringed at that lifestyle. And I hoped that I could be a little bit more in control of my vacations and time away and just my daily routine. And not to say that I'm not working hard, probably putting a lot more hours being an entrepreneur, but it is a matter of just putting the time in and being a bit more flexible. So
Absolutely.
Like that. Yeah.
Well, and I always find it interesting. I just had a conversation yesterday about, entrepreneurs and how they find, their work of heart, so to speak. But, it's interesting. You started off as a teacher and, truly in your business still you are, teaching, quite a bit.
Yes.
And, either with students in your classes or your employees. So
exactly, and that's part of like just wanting to make a difference in people's lives. And when I look back at my teaching in grade 8, I really enjoyed the personal development side of it. So
Right.
I knew we had to teach math and French and English and all those great subjects, but at the end of the day I really like to build really awesome human beings. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so started there and then realized that maybe I could make a go at this as being a full-time job.
Absolutely. So tell me, as far as you touched on it a little bit, but, the idea for Pura Vida. So how did the idea for that business, I mean, you had been, I think, 10 years with LC Builders
Yeah.
at that point with your husband, Lionel.
Yes.
So how did the Pura Vida and the yoga side of it come to be?
I think it's just a matter of that time in my life that I wanted something for me. So obviously, LC Builders was very much my husband that wanted that. And as I grew into it, I loved it. And I really enjoyed the whole building something from scratch. It's just amazing that you start with a piece of land and then you end up with a beautiful home at the end. And to me, it was at that point I was about to turn 40 and thinking, what do I want to do? So
Right.
seeing his passion getting up in the morning, I really wanted that for myself. And yoga was just something that I always really envisioned as something that would help other people like myself. And that's what we've created. A lot of business people come do yoga, and it's beautiful to see that they actually take the time to do that. So starting there, and also offering the opportunity for amazing teachers, a great place to work, because being in the yoga industry could be very challenging to find a studio or studios that offer a consistent schedule. And for us, it was something that I wanted it to be a business. So it was not just, it's not just not say a work of heart, but it was like they could actually make sure that they had income at the end of the day. So it was
Absolutely.
business with passion. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's cool too. I was reading your bio before I came in here this morning, and I think it's a cool story too of how you've merged your businesses, because the building in which Pura Vida is, your company and you and Lionel built that. So can you talk a little bit about how that concept came to be, and also touch on the health food store that you owned in there as well?
Exactly. So obviously home building is at the beginning, right to the end, is customer service. It's seeing how you can possibly bring joy to something that would have seemed boring for anybody else, but really giving that customer service throughout the process and afterwards as well. So how could I, and we had a lot of success in that industry, so how could I transfer that to the yoga, and then also taking care of your body? So your home is your body, so you want to make sure that you take care of that. Yeah. And so obviously yoga was the first passion, and when we built the building where Pura Vida is located, we were looking to have businesses that would complement the whole wellness industry. So that's where we brought in Sequoia Dieppe, which we owned at the beginning. We developed and then we eventually sold, which we're really happy to have fantastic owners that took care of our baby afterwards. So it's just a matter of just linking, taking care of yourself through the home, the body, and then obviously with the food that you're putting in your body. So it's
that.
it's a whole 360 on all ends of your life.
I love it. Okay, and another one. So I actually know the answer to this, but the audience does not. So I wanted you to share the story of how you came up with the name for your company, Pura Vida.
Yeah. So obviously LC Builders was not very original because it was Lionel and Chantal Builders. So I thought we had to
Hey,
put
it
a
still
little
works.
bit. Yeah, it did, and it does, and it's an awesome story for sure. But the Pura Vida was more trying to find a word that was not necessarily either English or French, and it was very universal. So when you happen to travel to Costa Rica, which my lovely partner Catherine had done, and had heard the word, it really meant pure life, and it was a feeling behind it. So they say Pura Vida, and we got the opportunity. Angela and I got the opportunity to go to Costa Rica together, and you heard it everywhere. So it was just amazing to have that. So until I went to Costa Rica, I loved the word and I loved the name. But when I lived what it meant, it brought a whole new joy. And now we have a lot of clients that have been to Costa Rica since we've opened, and they do appreciate that word so much more. So it is just such a lovely greeting, salutation. The world is nice, pure, and so that's where Pura Vida came from. So
Amazing.
yeah.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about. Okay, so you touched on Costa Rica. And I also find it very interesting when we talk personal development and growth for, your yoga practice and as an entrepreneur has been very important to you. And I would say for me as well, over the last couple of years, my transformation and my growth as a person and in my business has very much been about, going to events, reading. I know you read a lot. It's been, traveling to go to conferences and training. So talk a little bit about that. You started off in Thailand.
Yes.
And so if you don't mind, share a little bit about that.
So even going back to LC Builders, I think that's where we really changed our building industry for ourselves. It was doing training and having coaches, like literally was unheard of in our industry here in this area. So we believed in that so much, and I think that brought our company to a higher level of expertise. And then obviously transfer that to Pura Vida. So looking for a training that was offered 200 hours in a sequence where I really felt that I was going to get high quality. I ended up going to the other side of the world for this and never hesitated. At the minute, maybe because my son was just starting kindergarten, so it was like a little bit of a struggle with leaving him behind. But I realized that he needed that as well, and Daddy needed that as well. So it was awesome for me to go there, meet incredible teachers and passionate people around me, so very like-minded people.
That you still stayed connected
I still stay connected. And that is always a dilemma because I've met so many great people that every time I plan a trip now, it's always trying to encompass meeting up with a few of them. So that's where the Bali trip came afterwards. It's like, okay, how could I have a training in Bali because I really want to meet or reconnect with a good friend of mine that I met through my Thailand training. So every training has brought me meeting amazing people and also making sure that I do my work on finding the proper training, because a lot of training is out there. As any industry, you have some that are a little bit less quality, so references are key for me, and I always make sure, because it's a big investment as well. I mean, leaving for either 2 or 3 weeks, flying other side of the country or the world, you want to make sure that you're getting your best quality training possible. So far, so good. And I think it's really important to sometimes to step out. So for me, it's getting away from the day-to-day.
Kind of your comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely. Traveling alone is huge.
Yes.
I mean, just people think that I'm so brave, but I always have somebody waiting for me at the airport with my name at the bottom of almost the staircase. So I do organize myself very well. And I try to stay safe as much as I can. And it's just very inspiring to see that there's not just you that's maybe looking for something more. So meeting people from all over the world with the same general, like, wanting the best for themselves. So
and for other people.
Absolutely. So
love it.
Yeah.
So you touched on it. I mean, we've talked a number of times about the fact that you decided to do your training. It happened to be when your son was starting kindergarten, like a pivotal moment in moms and kids' lives. So let's talk a little bit about that. You are a mom to Aiden is
10.
Almost he's 10. I've got 2 boys who are 8 and 10. So let's talk about being an entrepreneur and a mom, and I'll ask the question, so how has being an entrepreneur affected your family life, or vice versa? How has family life affected being an entrepreneur?
I think it's great because it shows my son that work hard, play hard. So we do put a lot of hours. So sometimes when we have snowstorms, other kids might be sleeping. We're out shoveling walkways to make sure that the building can be open, and it might be 6 o'clock or 5:30. But then again, we get to maybe go to March break and do these awesome trips. So it's really showing him that you can put the work. It's not easy. Nothing is given in the world. And I think it's just also for me when I do travel for 3 or 4 weeks that he realized that it's not just about him.
Right.
So that's the key. I think sometimes as parent we always put the kids first all the time, and we kind of lose sight of ourselves. And I don't like the word selfish, but I kind of feel a little bit when I'm leaving. But then when I come back to see the energy that and the bond that's been created with the son and my husband, and the independence. I mean, he is a little rock star as far as like very social and not clingy, which is something that I really wanted him to be, independent. So I think it's a great opportunity for him to see that he can create his world. So the opportunities are there. So we just got to work hard.
Well, and I think, even for myself, it's been wonderful for me to be able to talk about, my passions and my business. And I have seen that entrepreneurial spirit, starting very quickly for my kids, right? Like, it's entertaining. Like, my youngest Quinn will be like, okay, so I want to sell my drawings. So do you think I can sell this for $25? I'm like, I'm not sure, but we can certainly try, right? And then, my oldest son is very much into it. I just talked to him yesterday. He's really into podcasts, as it turns out. They're doing that at school, and so we started talking about maybe he could do a video for my business. Maybe he could, and I think it's amazing for them to be thinking outside of the box at an early age, because I'm not sure that most of us were given that opportunity. It was like, okay, go to school, become an accountant, become a doctor, become a you had to have it had labels, and you were supposed to have a plan.
Exactly.
And so the fact that our society now has become more welcoming to different careers and different career paths, I think it's
absolutely
awesome.
And that's what I want him to realize, that we both have education, so education is important, but at the end of the day I think passion trumps that a little bit. So you use what you learn for sure, but I mean, if you're passionate about something, it's not a job. So he sees mommy get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go yoga, and it's not a struggle at all. It's like and sometimes like, mommy, I think you're too much at the studio and not enough at home. I'm like, okay, yeah,
I know sometimes they're like because they have no filter, they tell us things and see things that we wouldn't necessarily see, right?
But I think it's awesome that he realized that you can really love your job. So for me, it's just hopefully he's going to get that, because what a sad story to hate a job. I mean, it's such a long life. It's such a beautiful life. Do something you love and you're passionate about, for sure.
Absolutely. So is there a typical day for Chantal Gaudet?
No.
Like, what does it? No.
No.
I know you are a morning person.
Yes,
and,
I am.
It's not uncommon for you to get up and on the go early. So,
exactly. So a typical day, definitely if I'm working the yoga class, got to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do the 6 o'clock class, which I love, getting in there early, getting the tea started, getting the ambiance really ready to go. Customers deserve the best customer experience from the get-go. Yeah. And but if I'm not teaching, I'll be at home and have breakfast with the boys, and then send them off to school, and kind of go to the studio, set up again, all about the details. It's just like going around, because we have amazing staff that take care of the cleansing. The cleansing.
I know, we
talked
about that. The cleanliness of your studio is super important to you.
So it's almost it's just crazy. It's just because I've been to so many studios, and there is this I guess a perceived what it's going to look like and smell like, because it's a hot yoga studio.
Right.
And we did invest a lot of money in making sure that we had amazing ventilation systems, so there's no humidity issues there. So cleanliness is key. I mean, who wouldn't want to be, we have customers say they'd rather take a shower almost here at a studio than at home. I'm like,
Nice.
that's the perfect thing I want to hear.
Yeah.
So for me, it could be almost cleaning in the morning if I see that something is not quite right, or writing inspirational chalkboards, or heading out to the job site. Yesterday I was helping my husband grout countertop. So
Nice.
it could be a little bit of everything. So
Yeah.
it just needs to be done at the end of the day. And
You make it happen.
Absolutely. And we try to love what we do always. I mean, even the grouting yesterday, we tried to have a little bit of fun with that. So it's a task that seems boring, but if you have a little bit of fun with it, it could be fun.
Now, and I also know that you're very, your daily routines are very important to you. And so talk a little bit about that, about your own yoga practice, meditation.
Yes.
I know you're a huge reader.
Yes,
So
yes,
tell us a little bit about that.
Well, reading is, I think that's one of the keys to success is reading on either other successful people. It could be, I'm not good with names and authors, but it could be the guy that opened Starbucks to just anything. Just you always catch something from every book that I've read. There's always
Every
something.
story.
Absolutely. So honestly, it is what keeps me to the routine every night. And not a night goes by without me at least 15 minutes of reading. But before that, it would have been probably a good 15 minutes of my own yoga practice on my mat, on the floor, obviously in front of the fireplace maybe, or just with a nice candle or something, just to get my body ready for sleep. We used to be... we would watch TV before going to bed and no more.
Yeah.
I decided that was a long time ago. That was not as efficient. So basically that. And I do have a nice, it's called magnesium. It's called Calm. I think I have a nice
Yes,
warm
we've talked
drink
about
as well.
that.
So
Yes.
around 9 o'clock, everything starts to shut down at the house. So my warm, calm tea drinking routine starts to yoga and then reading and also journaling as well. So the meditation is a struggle. I am wanting to learn that. I'm reading about it right now. So I'm trying to find my right guru, I guess, to help me with that.
Absolutely.
So,
Well, and I will say, I have also struggled with insomnia my whole life. And as I started my journey towards work of heart and where I am today, I realized that for me to get better sleep, I needed a bedtime routine. And it makes sense, right? Especially if you have kids, you know how important routine is and being consistent. And so for me, very much the same. I will have a hot shower. It doesn't matter if it's 40 degrees outside or if it's like, midnight, I will have a hot shower, and I'm like, very, I'm very intentional about the things that I do and don't do before bedtime. So I do think that it's important. Meditation, I mean, I think it seems to be a struggle. I'm putting that in quotation marks. Not everyone can see that, but it seems to be a struggle for many people.
It is.
And yet everyone knows how important it is and how, how they can get such,
It's supposed to be so simple and yet so difficult for most. And I'm guilty of that. I mean, I started my yoga practice, very physical practice. It was called a Bikram routine, where you basically had so many poses and you did them twice and nothing would vary. So I needed that structure. And then it went to a little bit less structure, and then it went to a restorative practice, which is complete opposite. You're basically
amazing.
staying still for 5 to 6 minutes in poses where you're all like with cushions and all these great things. And just to be still is so much harder than me doing sun salutation. So it's really...
so it's still a challenge for you all these years later.
It is because it's so different from our everyday lives. Everyday lives, you're kind of running and you're trying to catch up with team snaps, with kids have activities or, school and all that. And then suddenly you're asked to stay still. Wow, I could be doing more other things or other things that are more important. So it's always a reminder that this is what I need to be doing the most, is doing nothing, probably.
Well, and it's interesting, I think there's a lot of misconceptions around meditation and around stillness.
Yes.
I will say, again, as I started on that journey 3 or 4 years ago, I had done a introduction to meditation. Was it Christine Hathaway?
Yes, Christine.
I think at your studio.
Yes.
And so I knew that I was dealing with a lot of stress and insomnia and just like adrenal burnout, like all of it. And so I had gone to Christine's workshop at your studio, and as she was talking about meditation, I realized how complicated I had made it seem. And
So
really, like,
simple.
it's so simple. And when I mean, I don't do it enough. I don't, for what I want to do. But I realized after that workshop that sometimes it just meant me sitting in my car,
Yes.
which I spent a lot of time in my car. But it's sitting in my car and closing my eyes. That's it.
Not while
it
driving,
doesn't
though.
need-
Not while driving.
Not while driving. Exactly. Key point. Don't drive with your eyes closed. But I would realize sometimes, like, even taking 2 minutes to shut my eyes and just be,
Yeah.
it makes a huge difference. And the more that you can do that, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I'm sure there's people that can do it far longer than that. But
Absolutely.
for me, it makes a massive difference.
Absolutely. And just not having the radio on as well. That was a big thing
Yes.
for me because I used to jam the music, blaring all the time. And now it's like maybe driving in quietness. So that's kind
Absolutely.
of a meditative state as well. So it is little things that you can do. And I agree completely. Staying seated anywhere, it could be in an airport or wherever, closing the eyes for a few minutes and just taking a few breaths. And that's meditation right there.
Yeah,
So.
it doesn't need to be more complicated.
I know. We always like to complicate things.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me, again, going back to the books, because
Yes.
that's a huge part of my life as well. So tell me, do you have a favorite book?
I do. The Four Agreements for me is my go-to book. When we talked at the beginning, maybe of a business book, and I thought maybe that's the book. That's the book that changed my
can
life,
be,
and
yeah.
that's the business book as well. And the Four Agreements is so simple. It's like your word. Be
Yeah.
true to your word. I mean, everything you say in business or at home, make sure that it does make a positive impact. So if it's not positive, maybe try to hold it back. And that's very challenging at times, especially when you have sometimes, customer requests or complaints. You want to, but sometimes you just be mindful of what you're going to say and maybe silence is better. Or so, those words, trying your best, doing your best. I mean, at the end of the day,
Absolutely.
if something fails, but I honestly thought that I did my best, I've got nothing to lose. So
That's it.
it's so those, and then nothing personal. Oh my God, that's such a hard one. Taking nothing
Yes,
personally.
yeah.
We just had a review the other week on some kind of Facebook group, and it was not necessarily the best one, and it was just like I took it so personally, and then I realized that maybe there's something more to that. So there's always this other side of the story, and it's just the personal. It's hard. So, but it's got to be done. You can't take everything personally. So those agreements for me are just so key.
That's a great book.
So that's it. And I reread it every couple of weeks. I just kind of pick it
wow.
up. It's to the side of the bed
keep
and
it.
keep it by and just remind myself to reconnect with those four agreements for sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
And so how would you, does your inspiration come from books or from connections? Like, where does inspiration, ideas for your business and for what's next for you, where does it come from?
Oh my God, it's passion. It is passion, and it's going to different countries or cities or even here and seeing passionate people around me, either a restaurant or a business, and I just love quality customer service. This is just key. There's no two ways about it. It's going back to that.
That's been important in all your businesses.
All the time. And even in every purchase that I make, it's got to bring me joy. Now that's another book that I really enjoy.
Are you gonna you're dropping in Marie Kondo in here?
Yes,
Yeah.
I absolutely adore that series, and I love that in my life. As far as even if I'm gonna be buying a car, I better have joy going to that dealership. So, and when I really do, because I actually look forward to bringing my car to having it serviced. So that's a great thing. So having joy around me, and that's a huge thing in any business, in anything that I do. If it's not bringing me joy, oh my God, why am I doing it? So
Right.
So the business always, if it will not bring me joy, that's the day that I know that it'll be done. But I can't even perceive that. Both, because we're really struggling, even with the construction business. We're like, maybe we need to, but we really love what we do. So we've just scaled back. We do less. Less is more sometimes. And we really enjoy the process much more. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So what piece of advice would you give to people who want to become an entrepreneur?
Oh my God, you've got to go go big or go home. And for me, failure was not an option. I shared that with you at the beginning when you talked about opening your business. It's like, it is not an option. We were ready to sell the house if we would have had to. It was like no attachment to your personal things, because it's the business. Business comes first. I mean, family is important, all that. I'm not saying the family is not important, but for us, it was like, it's just like put all the energy, the love, and the passion, and it will not fail. There's a lot of work there. And when we say we celebrated our 5th-year anniversary, it's a big deal, because I've heard, and I don't want to even talk about the statistics of how many businesses don't reach the 5-year mark, but it is a huge deal. And don't think for 1 minute that you're safe, because that hot summer,
anything can change, right? One hot summer week.
Was like it was just a university. People say, you can't really go to university to to learn your business, your actual business, and that was like a tuition fee for us. Realize that the ego got in the way, and to be reminded of that daily is not be comfortable where you're at. You're always expect the unexpected, but know that passion will win, and you've got to have faith. Faith is huge.
Well, and I think it's interesting. Like I left my corporate job almost a year ago now, and so many people have said to me, don't expect to make any money your first year. Don't expect this. Like it's almost like people, they have your best interest at heart, but they're telling you, advising you from their experience. And so to your point, failure is not an option. And I don't think that, any of us should change our goals or, limit our expectations of ourselves or of what's possible just because other people tell us, their experience, right?
And they say that out of love. I mean,
Absolutely.
You really, really want to make sure that you don't take that as a, maybe you take it a little bit of fuel to your fire, but it is, it's out of love, and it's a challenging business. So I will never tell an entrepreneur it's going to be easy. No. Never, never, never. There's days that you just want to sit down and cry, and those are okay, because
that's part of the process.
That's the roller coaster, and I would not change one thing. So even after having a few ups and downs, it's always possible to go up. So
absolutely. Well, I don't know if you remember this, but a couple of years ago, when I was starting off on this, we were having a conversation. You were one of the people that kind of kept me on this and, kept me positive about it. But I was talking about, this being a risk. And you said something along the lines of, well, it's not a risk if it's what you're meant to do. Yeah. And, I still think about that. When you're, because you do have to sometimes invest in your business, invest in yourself for professional development or whatever. And, there's times where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not sure what's going to happen with this. But, I've replayed that. I'm like, well, it's not a risk if, if you feel that this is what you're meant to do, then you absolutely should do it.
Absolutely. Again, putting yourself first at the end of the day. I mean, if that training is going to help you build customers and it's going to, expand your business, my God, take that training, do that for sure. So 100%. Never a risk for sure.
Well, Chantal, this has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me. I loved it.
None of us keeled over on this first podcast, so that's amazing. And yeah, I do, I love your journey of, how you started off as a teacher and have become an entrepreneur, and how you keep growing, and, it's awesome. It's just going to keep going, right?
Awesome. And my last advice would be surrounding yourself with amazing people. And when you said, we had that conversation, I do have a group of amazing mentors that I can call at any moment. So that is also very key.
Yes, I agree.
It is not a sign of weakness to ask for help. No. And another business completely different than yours might have the solution. So never thinking that you have to just zoom into your type of business. I've had amazing solutions given to me by completely different industries. So
I think, you know what, that if nothing key. Else, the biggest lesson I've taken away this last year becoming a full-time entrepreneur is the importance of asking for help and realizing that you need help.
And they love giving it.
And accepting it.
And they love giving it.
Yes. And that sometimes, I spent, there was a few things I was working on in the fall, and I was looking for the answers myself and felt like I should find the answers myself. And, when I kind of finally put it out there and was like, I'm not sure, all of a sudden, it was literally within a week, I had all of these people, yourself included, saying like, oh, have you thought about this? Well, did you know this? It was like, all of a sudden, all the answers that I needed were right there from people who I already knew, so I think, and interestingly, I didn't plant this, I will say, my talk, so Work of Heart, is happening this weekend, and my talk is about asking for help and realizing that help is all around you, and that anything is possible.
Absolutely.
So
Love it.
Well, thank you so much, Chantal, for joining us today and for sharing your story. I'm Angela Harris, and this has been episode number 1 of Dare to Transform, a Missing Link Technologies podcast in collaboration with Work of Heart. Have an amazing day. We hope you dare to transform.
Thank you.